Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Burch Law Podcast, the Pegasus Podcast, Burch Law Production, whatever we call it. The important thing is the title, which is one of us knows what they are talking about, and the other one is you. Welcome. As always, I'm joined by other Burch Law people, Sara, Sam, and Cyntia. I don't have a name. I'm Lorie.
No, you have an E name, Lorie.
Yeah, that's not how it starts, though. So I think you missed the point. So today we are going, because we're recording this in June, which is LGBTQ Pride Month. So we are going to talk about very special legal issues that affect the community. And really, it's valid every month, but we choose this month to highlight some of those things. But once June 30th ends, it's not like the needs go away. And so hopefully we'll be able to cover some helpful information for those who celebrate. That's one of my favorite expressions, for those who celebrate. And really, with all the vitriol that you see, and I mean, some of it's been my own family members against Pride, why can't they just say for those who celebrate the way we do other type holidays and events?
That'd be too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy.
It would be too easy. But it's all the more important year round, and also with the current political climate, more important to make sure that you have all the legal protections in place. I've been doing this for a couple decades now, and we've always had a special emphasis and focus on the LGBTQ community, formerly the LGBT community, formerly the GLBT community. That's actually what Sam and Sara should have researched to discuss, is the history of the alphabet soup, to try and broaden our net in being more inclusive. Nevertheless, this will probably not be the last time we tackle this topic. But anyway, one of the biggest things I want to start out with, which is always something we emphasize, but it's more important even when we're talking about LGBTQ rights, is that what we're going to be talking about is specific to Texans, Lone Star State, because it varies state to state. So a lot of things that we're going to talk about is the legal landscape in Texas. And so I just want to make sure that that's really clear. So if you hear this, or you've moved from another state, or since we have an audience, an international audience, just know, because one person outside the United States listened to our podcast, that's why I say we have an international
It counts.
Anybody else yet, Sara?
No, just the one person.
Yeah. So far.
Yeah.
So far. So anywho, I personally, when starting this practice, and now we collectively as a law firm, we focus on a lot of these issues, and I've been in a lot of leadership and advocacy roles. So we really know what we're talking about. This is definitely going to be an episode where the title of the podcast should hit home, because when it comes to people who think they know better, this is an area in particular that we hit a lot upon. So what I want to do is both talk about some common mistakes that LGBTQ couples and families and individuals make. And then we also want to flip the script a little bit and talk about things that parents of LGBTQ kids should be making sure that they are doing. And I know that Sara, Sam, and Cyntia are chomping at the bit to get in on that discussion. They want to do a lot of explaining. They think they're up for it. I disagree. But they will at least be highlighting some things. Did anybody want to also talk about join me in discussing the mistakes? Because let me just do this. Yeah. The first one that we see is a very common mistake that we see in the community, is assuming that since marriage equality stepped foot on our door, that because you can be married now, that everything is now automatic. Anybody want to take this?
I mean, it's not, but
So explain, Cyntia. Why does being married all of a sudden not make inheritance, visit each other in the hospital, taking care of kids automatic?
well, first and foremost, nothing is automatic. You always have to designate who you would like to do these things. Otherwise, a court would do it for you, and they're going to choose somebody to make these decisions that you may not want. And that is terrifying to think about for a lot of people, and just in general, and specifically for a lot of our LGBTQ clients.
Yes. So I want to emphasize when I speak to this, particularly when marriage equality became the law of the land, is that emphasis on equality. It just made same sex couples equal with what opposite sex couples get with marital rights. And if you listen to us, which I really hope you do, but if you listen to us, then you know that that means things don't happen automatically. Things such as inheriting a home in Texas, if you own that jointly with your spouse, it does not automatically go to your surviving spouse. You do not automatically have rights to make medical decisions or have access to medical information. You do not automatically have the ability to take care of children unless you also are a legal parent. More about that shortly. So it is important to make sure that you have an estate plan, wills, trust, powers of attorney, all of those things in place. The other thing that I would emphasize in this is that there's something that same-sex couples are going to hit that perhaps heterosexuals don't, and that is animosity and people not wanting to honor your relationship. So even if they have to, they may not want to. It actually was just within the last 5 years, I believe, that there was a judge in Louisiana that didn't want to issue a marriage license to an interracial couple. That's pretty much been decided, my friends. And yet it doesn't mean that someone's personal prejudices don't influence their ability to grant certain things that the law is supposed to provide. So all the more reason to make sure that you have everything done and done correctly, which is going to be part of the next tip that and mistake that we see happens and tip of how to avoid it. The other thing is something that I've experienced really from day one of having this practice is something that I call institutional uncertainty. And what I mean by that
Yep.
is not everybody knows how the law treats LGBTQ couples, individuals, and families. And so there's still people that will find out, someone got married in, let's say, Memphis, Tennessee, and they will say, oh, well, is that valid here in Texas? And it's like, what have you missed? Like, of course it's valid here in Texas. So I've had funeral home directors actually tell a client before that they know that that's there for a same-sex couple. I know that's your spouse. I want to listen to you. No one's fighting with you, but I don't know if I can listen to you. So that's interesting that we see some of this play out. So all the more reason to make sure that you have those things. Nothing is automatic. It isn't for heterosexual couples, and it's not for same-sex couples. So marriage equality is great. There are many things. There are many things, I should say, not a lot of many things, but I can try and make a lot of many things happen. But there are many things that marriage does bring with it that are very important. And a lot of it's ceremonial, and there are some legal things, tax things, for better or for worse, but that's kind of the vow you're taking. But when it comes to probate, estates, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, medical decisions, and all of the like, you are now in the same boat with all the boring straight people out there. And yes, Virginia, you do need an estate plan.
Shots fired.
Okay. So what is the second mistake that LGBT Texans should not be making?
Trying to do it online.
trying to do it online, DIY, even some of these reduced legal services. So, what I mean by that is as well meaning as I think some of these HR departments are and companies are, where they provide these legal services and even some of these programs where it's almost like legal insurance. I'm not going to name anybody because I don't want to have any defamation issues. But the problem is maybe that's great for some other legal planning, but certainly not when it comes to really anybody. But let me tell you specifically why for the LGBTQ community that this is problematic. Well, I mean, generally, one of the problems with it, and this isn't specific to the community, is they're usually not valid. That hits pretty hard.
Yeah.
What? And what does that mean? It means it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And isn't that what you're looking for in a legal document, is for it to work? Or are you looking for it to be cheap and easy to create? Like, if you're looking for something to be cheap and easy to create, so you pay $50 or whatever online and you fill out a few blanks and print it, if that's what you're looking for, then definitely go the DIY route. But if you are looking for that to be honored and valid and to work, 90% of the time, maybe even higher, but I'm being generous today, 90% of the time, it will not work. A lot of people mistakenly think this is better than nothing. A lot of the time, it is nothing because it's not valid. A
Always a
shockingly
third option.
high amount of the time, it's worse than nothing because it will create scenarios. One of the most common ones is where people disinherit a spouse. And where people mistakenly do this is a lot of people assume that everything will go to their spouse. So when they're answering questions, they're answering on behalf of the collective. And so they skip over the spouse. They take for granted that while you may think you are a union of one, the state of Texas considers you two different people in two different estates. So a lot of problems. But the other, more specific to the community issues, is that there are some other things that really should be considered. I mean, all of our clients benefit from this, but our model, our client model, our services model is based off a hypothetical couple that doesn't have any legal rights to fall back on. So we try to go the extra mile with some things. So that is doing declaration of guardianships if you become incompetent. You don't always see firms do that. And you certainly don't see that a lot with these online programs. We do an appointment of agent to oversee any type of funeral, burial, or cremation. And in fact, that is one that I've seen come up with a number of our same-sex couples as an issue, is family trying to come in, or the example that I gave earlier where there was a funeral director who said, I don't know if I can listen to you. So luckily we had that appointment. My clients forget the documents we prepare for them, but luckily they remember to reach out and say, hey, they're saying this. And it's like, yeah, we did that for you. It's there. The other thing is when it comes to kids, and we're going to spend some time talking about when you create families, when you have kids, it's not just a matter of naming guardians, but what about making sure that you've appointed someone, and it might be a significant other, partner, or spouse that you want to make sure can make medical decisions, take them to school, travel with them, and all of that, but they don't actually have legal rights. So we always do a designation of a healthcare agent, which is actually more encompassing than that because it also deals with traveling with them, taking them appointments, and so forth. So there's a lot of other considerations. The other thing that we do is we have some very customized language in the medical power of attorney. And a lot of that has to do with visitation. And so we have very special language in there about visitation because the law really only addresses, yes, this person can make medical decision, but in a lot of healthcare facilities and hospitals, they talk about family access, next of kin, visitation rights. And that doesn't always translate if we run into an issue of, again, animosity or institutional uncertainty, as I coined that term, having it very explicit that it's supposed to be also for visitation rights. Am I right?
You're so right.
Thank you. So a lot of downsides to trying to do this on your own. And the third biggest mistake that a lot of LGBTQ families make is what?
Believing being on the birth certificate gives you parental rights. This one's fun. Or not.
Yeah, so with the advent of marriage equality, there is a presumption that whomever you're married to would be put on the birth certificate. So I'm going to make this gendered language. Okay, so if a woman is pregnant and they're married to another woman, then yes, in Texas, you should be able to put your spouse on the birth certificate. That's really important. That's really great. It means a lot to you. It just doesn't mean a lot in the eyes of the law, because the way Texas defines a mother is to essentially you've given birth to them or you adopted them or there's been a decision by a court made, essentially. So a birth certificate doesn't do that. It doesn't give you legal rights. And this is probably the number one mistake or misconception that we see among female same-sex couples when they're having kids.
Mama.
Yes.
Are we going to get some firsthand knowledge on this or no?
You just never know who's going to stop by the set. Okay. And so the third misconception and mistake that people make, that's what we were talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we were talking about how through being married, whomever you're married to, it's put on the birth certificate. And that probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people presuming that gives parental rights. And it doesn't. It is necessary in those cases in Texas to make sure that there is what's called a second parent adoption. And the way it works right now, those are still alive and well in the state of Texas. But if you are in that situation, you probably should make sure that you get that done, because we don't know what the lay of the land is and how laws may change or whatnot. So I would definitely take advantage of making sure, if you want to be considered a legal parent of your children, then you should definitely pursue that with a qualified law firm to do that. Definitely not something you could do on your own. I also want to say, because I know firsthand that there are a number of, again, this is more of a gender specific scenario at this time, but that a lot of female couples will do what's called reciprocal IVF, where one has their eggs frozen and then fertilized, and then IVF is the process of then that embryo being transferred into the woman who froze her eggs. Reciprocal IVF is like surrogacy, essentially, where the partner or spouse then would actually be the one it's transferred to and carries. So in this scenario, when that one gives birth to the child, remember how I defined Texas law, the birth mother is considered the legal mother, even though they're not the biological mother. And so there are people in Texas who need to, or should, if they haven't, adopt their own biological children. So again, we could talk on and on about this stuff, but I think that probably one of the bigger areas of confusion and need for families and individuals to make sure that they've got all their legal planning in place is when it comes to the actual children that you have brought into this world, to make sure that they're protected, which I think is a great segue to our next list, which is for parents who have LGBTQ kids, because particularly with a lot of the movement in legislatures, including Texas, over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of targeting of kids, trans kids, non-binary kids, gay kids, all of that. And I know a lot of parents are wanting to know what can they do to best protect their kids. And so there's really 5 main ways that we want to highlight for you from an estate planning and legal protection way to do that. And I know this is where the rest of the team really wanted to get involved. So who's going to take the number 1?
I'm going to take the first one.
You are.
Are we doing
Sam?
Are we doing it to just where I name, like I say it and then you explain, or how do you want to
say whatever you want, and then I will say what you should have
That's probably
said.
not a good idea. So the first one is to name a guardian, or there's additionally, if you want to take a step further, you can also exclude certain people from being a guardian of your kids.
What is naming a guardian? What does that even mean?
Yeah. So naming a guardian means that if, say, something happens to you, you're traveling overseas, or God forbid something bad happens, that your kids are taken care of, and you are naming specific people to take care of them, make sure that just their needs are taken care of, and that they have a place to go if something happens.
What if I'm just traveling to Galveston?
I mean, you would still want to name people, because what if you're in Galveston and they break their leg, or there's a car accident, or and they just like need to be taken to the hospital or to.
So if I don't have, so you're saying that as a parent, you need to name somebody who will take care of your kids if you die?
Yes.
If I don't do that, what happens?
They can go into foster care, and then, I mean, I'm sure all heard horror stories of foster care and how it can kind of mess up some kids, and not in a good way. And so, so it's just basically just to make
mess
sure
up kids not in a good way,
yeah.
as opposed to the way our parents have messed up us.
I mean, you know what? She may have a point there. Maybe we just let her keep going.
But yeah, just if you don't name somebody, they can go into foster care, and then the state can also possibly appoint a guardian, and it could be somebody that, if your kid is LGBT, that they could have differing opinions, to put it nicely, and that's just not in the best interest of the kids.
I mean, so they're in Child Protective Services, they're a ward of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, the state of Texas is responsible for naming who would be their guardian. And it's possible, particularly in our state, that they could be forced into some sort of, I just had it at the top of my head. What are those? Conversion therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Conversion therapy. Definitely. Okay. So name a guardian. What is something else?
Number 2 is to, if your kids are over 18, to get powers of attorney. Because once your kid turns 18, you no longer have rights to make medical or financial decisions for them. So,
who does?
Them, because they're an adult in the eyes of the law.
No. I mean, but if they're, it's not like you can override your child. If an 18-year-old is rushed to the hospital and they're not able to communicate with anybody, and they're not able to make their own decisions, they're unconscious, who makes the decisions?
Actually, I don't know.
Exactly. We don't know. It's a gray area. I've actually seen parents where they've had to go to court to get appointed to make, actually in this particular case, it was initially medical decisions, and then it was the ability to bury their daughter and grandchildren because they didn't have paperwork spelling out who they wanted to do that. So once you turn 18, you're a legal adult. Remember, air quotes, because the idea of that is ridiculous if you've met any 18-year-olds, or remember back to when you were 18 and how ridiculous that premise is. But no one has automatic rights to make decisions for you, not a spouse, not a parent, not anybody. So for parents who have LGBTQ kids, and you want to make sure that you don't have any problems getting emergency information, making decisions for them, then it's very important for them to get some powers of attorney in place to make sure that you We won't have any issue getting access to information and making decisions. Or if you are a young adult who is an LGBT or identifies as LGBTQ and you're estranged from your parents or your family, all the more reason to make sure that you get these things in place so that they aren't the default. They aren't the ones that can go to court. They aren't the ones that can show up at the hospital and say, we're next of kin, to make sure that you've named who you want. Right? Okay.
Right.
What is the third thing? A third way?
So the third thing will be the privacy of a living trust. While we always suggest having a will, an extra layer of protection would be a trust. Not only is it private, it's a good way just to make sure that your assets go to who you want, like how you mentioned about how you could be estranged from family members if you pass away, if you're not descendants.
Heirs?
Heirs, yeah. If you're
Sure.
heirs, or say like your parents or siblings,
Did you say
or
ears?
no, I said
She said heirs.
if they are family members that you are estranged with, and are homophobic, and are not very nice, they're going to be the ones who get your assets or like your money or
Especially if
whatever
they're
you
not very
have.
nice.
Yeah, especially if they suck.
We
but-
prefer those really polite bigots.
Yeah. The ones we don't know about.
The rude ones.
But a trust is just a way to keep like your assets private, and your, I guess, like family dynamics private, if you prefer a more private lifestyle as well.
Oh, you said lifestyle. I think we got to tread on that word carefully in this.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sam,
Sorry.
I don't understand. How you said a will, but a trust is private. What are you talking about? Like, why isn't a will private?
Yeah. So with a will, when you pass away, you will still have to go through probate for whoever your executor is to get control of your estate. And so that
Wait
goes
a minute.
through.
Stop. You're telling me that if I'm the executor, the person in charge in somebody's will, and they die, and I call you, and I tell you, so-and-so died, I'm the executor and I have a will. Are you telling me that your boss is telling you to tell them, no, you don't have a will, and you're not the executor until a judge says it's a will, and the judge says you can serve as executor? Is that what you're telling me, that you are trained to tell people when they call?
That is so what I'm trained to tell people when they call.
I can't believe that. So you're telling me that a will still has to go through a probate court process, meaning that it is a public record, meaning
Yes.
that the names of your kids, dead names, family history, assets, value of assets, all of that is going to be a public record. Is that what you were telling me?
That's what I'm telling you. That's correct.
And now you're doubling down and telling me that there's something called a living trust. How is that private? What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah. So if you connect everything correctly to the trust after you've created it, like bank accounts and cars, houses, etc., because they are already connected to the trust, you won't have to go through probate. And you're just your trustee, whoever you appoint to take care of your trust after you've passed away. They just handle everything, and you don't have to go through probate and prove that you're the executor.
I've decided this is a much more fun way to do all of our podcasts going forward.
I don't know about that.
Since you two really wanted to be able to talk about these things. So I thought living trusts were just for rich people.
No, not at all. Anybody can have a trust.
What?
Yeah, what? I mean, I have a trust and I have like $2 to my name. So if that.
You know what? I resent that remark as the person who pays you. And if you only have $2 to your name, that is your own fault.
Oh, 100%.
She has student loans.
Lay off the
I got a
K-pop.
root canal, man.
Oh, you did. I forgot
That
about
stuff's
that.
expensive.
Those are
Or-
pricey. In another life, I managed an endodontist office. So, which, by the way, is what the type of dentist that does root canals.
Hmm.
We should do a
Yeah.
whole segment on Lorie's dental experience
We should.
because it's kind of a weird sideline to, because I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I've always been pursuing that, but there is this whole dental industry that I've been involved in. I mean, obviously. But yes, okay. So a living trust, it's really it's not something that's just for super wealthy people. It's really more something that you can create. It distributes your estate, names who's in charge, just like a will does. But then during your lifetime, if you make sure that your assets are connected to it and you're saying you can still use your money, your property the same way as you do now,
Yes.
but when you pass away, if things are connected to the trust, there's no need to go through probate, which means it's not a public record. So that also means, if I'm understanding you correctly, that there's no cost to probate and there's no time delays as well.
Correct.
Okay. So might be a good choice. All right, great.
Yeah.
I believe we've got 2 more really great tips for parents of LGBTQ kids. Who's taking number 4?
I am. Number 4 is ensure that you choose affirming executors, guardians, and other fiduciaries. Now I have to explain fiduciaries. Fiduciaries are people that are appointed to make decisions on your behalf by you once you are no longer here, or actually some while you're here. Wow, we really gave me this one.
You chose it.
I did, but I can't believe Lorie let me.
Whoops.
So essentially,
I mean, there is a whole blog I wrote.
there is a whole blog. Do I have
just
it
read
pulled up
that
right now? And am I skimming it? Of course not. Let's see here. So essentially, why it's really important to choose affirming people to name in your documents is you want to ensure your child is, one, in a safe place, and also is treated how you would want them to be treated. That if they're part of the community, that they are allowed to express that they aren't taken places where they don't want to be. They aren't told, like, no, that's wrong, as a lot of people do. So it's really important to make sure that you choose your executors, guardians, whoever. If you do not choose, let's say something happens to you, and it doesn't matter, something happens to you. I was going to say the other parent, but maybe not. Maybe they don't have another parent. Then the child will go to foster care. They'll end up under the purview of Child Protective Services. Then after that, I've actually worked a little with Child Protective Services, and they end up in foster care. Sometimes they go from one home to another. They experience very different types of people, and eventually they'll get adopted. The judge is the one who chooses if the person is fit to be a guardian of your child or to be the new parents. And what is fit to you may not be fit to them. So that's something that's really important, because they can all of a sudden decide, well, you're not doing what I would like you to do. So how about you don't get this money? Or how about we don't properly do X, Y, and Z? And then there's a whole nother problem if the kid is able to talk to somebody and able to possibly get something done about it. But that's really rare and hard. Make sure you name the right people you want.
So if we're putting it this way, if you let's say you have a kid who is trans, and you're getting your will and estate plan and trust put in place, and you're picking who would take care of them if you died, guardian, because they're under 18. And you have a sister who is who lives in the deep South, very religious, does not believe in people being trans. They don't believe in any of that, but you're very close to her. And then you have a best friend who is absolutely accepting, is an ally, marches in pride parades and all of that, and you're close to them. What we're saying is for these parents, you may want to consider the friend versus the family member, because that kid will be more in a safe space, someone who's going to respect them, someone who's going to help nurture them, someone who won't use dead names or will make sure that they're getting the support that they need. Or let's say you're appointing a trustee to oversee money for your young child. Do you want to have someone, an uncle, who is judgmental and not accepting, be the one that your kid wants to go and study gender studies at Berkeley and is going to live with their girlfriend, and for them to be in the situation where it's like, no, I don't approve of you and your lifestyle, I don't want to give you that money? Or do you want to pick somebody who's going to be, as we said, affirming, who is an ally, who is going to care about them? That is the point of that, is it's an extra consideration that parents have to make when it comes to choosing the people that they're naming. And I'm making that distinction because the very last one we're about to get to is similar, but it's different. So who's going to do number 5?
Me. So yeah.
Oh, Sarah, I didn't realize your mic was on.
Damn.
That's valid. Okay, so similar. Choosing affirming professionals. Thank you. Whether it's, lawyers, CPAs, or the like, it's important that they can work with somebody who will treat them with respect and, like you're saying, not use their dead names or misgender them and things like that.
So I didn't think about this, amazingly enough, until a few years ago. And I was in a meeting with some clients, and it was a straight couple, and they had adult children, and they were naming their daughter as executor. And in the conversation, they said, we chose your firm because we know that you're LGBTQ friendly, and our daughter is in the community. And we wanted to make sure that when we passed away, that she felt comfortable coming to you because she's going to be our executor. And that was just this aha moment for me, thinking, my gosh, that is a big deal, because if you're leaving behind your kids that are then going to have to talk to your financial planner, your CPA, even when you're choosing, this isn't specific to the legal planning, but doctors and all of that, you really want to make sure, because again, the number one thing that everybody says to us when they're looking to put this kind of planning together is they want to make things as easy as possible and not leave a mess for their loved ones. It's the number one thing. That's the goal. Now, that means a lot of different things to people, but ultimately, that is what we know that we are charged with. That is the honor that we have when we are hired by someone, is to help them navigate that piece, to get them to that promised land. That's going to come no matter what. Hate to break it to you. And so if you're working with people that that when you have passed and you have this special consideration, that they are going to feel they're not going to have to, in their moment of grief, in their moment of suffering, that they're not going to have to worry about being judged or having to hold back a little bit of themselves or a lot of themselves. They're not going to have that discomfort that, frankly, a lot of us in the LGBT community never know how we should feel. We never, ever know. Going to a restaurant together, you don't know. Going to a movie and sitting next to each other. It's just a constant awareness. If you want to hold somebody's hand, things that straight couples never even think about. It's not even a blip on their radar, how they would be perceived by the outside world. And so in the moments of our greatest vulnerability, and that is often when we have lost someone dear to us, if you can set them up into a situation where they are going to be we say affirming, but really loved and welcomed and celebrated. That is one of the greatest gifts. That is one of the greatest parts of your legacy that you can create for them. And unfortunately, as much as we talk about this, there's still the vast majority of people don't have this planning done, or think, just to kind of recap and rehash what we've gone through, think that they can just, they'll get around to it, or they can do the DIY, or my HR department, they provide these benefits, or we'll do the, for better, it's better than nothing sort of thing. But all you're doing is shortchanging what your family and loved ones are going to have to go through. And truly, that is the last chapter of your story, of who you are and your legacy that you are writing. And so the mission for us, even with a title like one of us knows what they're talking about and the other one is you, tongue-in-cheek, playful, right? But the mission is really to try and get across to people that they need to get this done. They need to get this done correctly, and they need to get this done now. You can always change it and you can adjust it. And that is the same case with everybody, but particularly when it comes to the precious needs of our community. You have to take the responsibility and the time to do this and get this planning in place. I implore you that this should be a sense of urgency for every couple, every family, every individual, and certainly every parent of an LGBTQ child, whether they're young or an adult, to make sure that they get this done. There's my soapbox, everybody. So maybe we should have some fun now. I believe.
Agree.
Okay. The fun or everything I just said?
Well, all of the above.
Okay. Thank you. So with that said, I believe that there are some other things, and I'm scared of them, frankly, that Sam and Sara may want to interject as something that when it comes to Pride Month, but really every month, that you might want to do. So take the floor, if you will.
First one is
All
real
right.
great.
Yeah. All right. So some fun things to do during Pride Month and every month is celebrate Toyotathon with your straight friends. Does this start in November? Yes, but it is never too early to start. So take this month as your
planning.
starting point.
Yeah.
What if they celebrate
What about
Happy
Honda
Honda Day?
Days? Yeah.
It's for those who celebrate.
Is it around the same time? I genuinely don't know. I'm guessing it is.
It is.
Yeah, when's Ford Truck Month?
Most important one.
In Texas, every month.
Every day.
Every day.
Okay, so our second one, and while we always do this as like a hee hee ha ha moment, this one is kind of, I guess, serious. But like, go to your Pride events, celebrate, have fun, get all the free stuff that the companies are trying to like. Go get your pins or your gay pins, because there's always gay pins.
What is a gay pin?
Just a rainbow pin.
It's a regular thing with rainbows on it.
Yeah. Just like you'll find rainbow bags and rainbow stickers and rainbow candy.
Are you saying this because we have all those things?
Well, we didn't have the candy, but
Skittles?
Jamie does
oh, yeah, I
Skittles.
guess we did do the
Skittles.
yeah. What about
No, that's
that?
Jamie. We don't do that.
Yeah. But
I'm not comfortable with Taste the Rainbow.
I've learned with unfortunately being on chronically online is that a lot of the younger gays don't really learn about like our history in terms of like Stonewall and Marsha P. Johnson and like why Pride Month started and why it is in the unfortunately very hot month of June. And I don't know, I feel like it's a good thing to learn about. You should always, even if it's been a while, pick up a
Pride
book
was
by
started as a protest.
Mm-hmm.
Civil disobedience.
Yeah. And it's still a protest because we're still obviously, we don't have our full rights, or people are trying to take it away, and all that not fun stuff. So yeah, it's a good thing to learn why it happens each year.
Also, if you want to read more about like first accounts experiences from like New York, there's a book called Gay New York that takes place, I believe, in the 50s and 60s. That's actually really interesting. So I would say check it out. It's like a historical document.
Right on.
If you're leading with context.
That is in my bless and release box.
Same.
I don't want to know where it is. I think mine's like in the middle. I think it's either just above it or just under it.
All right. Number 3 on our list is to get your estate plan done with Burch Law for all the reasons we've already named. But what better way to celebrate yourself than helping your loved ones and protecting them?
Indeed, 'tis true.
Maybe we should have ended with that one, because that was kind of
probably should
this
have.
one. Yeah, because we
y'all
went
didn't.
serious, and then now got this one.
And yet, here we are.
Yeah.
And our last one is take a "Am I gay?" quiz and see really how gay you are, so you can support your friends as a true ally, or find out something new about yourself this Pride Month.
That would be finding out something new about yourself. Is there a specific quiz?
No, I there's a whole bunch. I'm sure there's a
Or
bunch.
is it
a
set up an
non-BuzzFeed
appointment with
one.
Burch Law and we'll tell you?
Well, there's the what is like the scale? I don't remember the scale.
The Kinsey scale.
Kinsey
Yeah,
scale.
I was gonna say.
Richter scale.
The Richter scale?
Yeah. Yeah, you can find out where you are. Are you straight, mostly straight, in the middle, mostly gay, full gay? You can find out. Good times.
Yeah, there's the Kinsey test.
Yeah.
The Kinsey scale test. Yes, you can take that.
Is there an
created
actual
by Dr.
test?
Alfred Kinsey. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an actual test.
Yeah. It's actually developed by several doctors, Dr. Alfred Kinsey, Dr. Wardell Omri,
Wardell?
Wardell, and Dr. Clyde Martin.
I love all of these names.
Hey, it got named after Kinsey, so
Okay, and what
they
is the
apparently
Kinsey
interviewed.
scale? Are we going to explain it?
Hold on, I'm
Do you
reading
want me to explain it?
Sure.
Basically, it's a spectrum of human sexuality, and I really didn't know we were going to go here, but I hate to break it to people, but it's really only society that labels this and makes you have to pick a box. But scientifically, if you accept science, and that's a big if, everybody's on a spectrum. So there is a potential, depending on a person, your level of attraction and wanting to be with that person. So I don't know. Is it a scale of 6?
I think 6.
Okay.
Lorie, they say they interviewed thousands of people about their sexual histories. Research showed that sexual behavior, thoughts, and feelings towards the same or opposite sex were not always consistent across time.
Yes.
And then it wants you to take the test.
Yes. So it is a reality. One day, maybe society will catch up with science. Who knows? But that's the Kinsey scale. So
don't make yourself fit in a box. Don't do that.
I mean,
don't let
is
other
it
people label
like,
you.
Is J-Lo in the room or is Dan Marino in the room? Because that'll determine where I am on the Kinsey scale. All right. So to sum up, y'all keep freezing for me. So that concludes this episode of One of Us Knows What They're Talking About and the Other One Is You. Hopefully you've gleaned some good insight into specific legal issues that face LGBTQ Texans as well as parents of LGBTQ Texans. And hopefully with anything, we're giving you some education, some entertainment, but also most importantly, some incentive to take action. And that's really what we hope you do. On behalf of Sam, Sara, and Cyntia, I'm Lorie Burch, and we will meet you next time. same place.